Okay, so that's starting now.
Okay.
And then the second thing is, as you're speaking, I'll probably be typing notes. So if you see me typing on the keyboard, I'll go on mute while I do it so it doesn't distract you.
Okay.
But I'll just be taking notes. So yeah, I'm not doing emails.
Yeah, totally fine.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I guess to start then, it would be great to just do introductions. I've seen a kind of short bit of information that Dave has sent over, but I'd love to hear in your own words a bit about your background and your ambitions, and then I can tell you something about my background too.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Vivian. So I moved to US when I was 13. So I went high school in US and so I spent my first 3 years in college, 3 years undergrad in a small liberal arts college in Middle America, like Missouri, and then I transferred to Columbia my junior year. So I studied 2 more years there and got my second undergrad degree in operation research. So I just graduated in May actually. Um, so right now I work part time at Adobe. I think I'm probably gonna get a interview at BCG because I was able to like find a connection in BCG China office, and I think he's a partner there. Like he probably might like help recommend me to the HR and see whether or not I can get interviews in October. And I'm not sure about like McKinsey and like Bain right now because I'm still trying to network and see if I can get connections in those firms. Um, so those are where I am right now. So for case prep, so my junior year at Columbia, I did a little prepping because I missed the recruitment season because I wasn't really know what I want to do at the time. But when I figured out, it was like kind of late. But I still did a little bit like case prep my senior year for consulting. So I did like about like 20, I think 25 cases, like live cases each back then, and but I didn't really do well on my like interviews. So my interview with like smaller consulting firms, um, and I didn't get interviews from like the big three. So now I like think I might get an opportunity in October to like start like picking up like the case prep right now. I think I did like about eight live cases right now. And then I start watching like David's like videos and see like there's some like valuable lessons to learn. So this is my like progress so far. I do feel like little struggle with like have like a more tailored structures, and I think I don't have like a lot of troubles doing like quantitative math, but it might be a little difficult for me like to walk through my analysis process in more like structured way that's like easy to understand for interviewers. So like that's something I'm working on right now. So please let me know if you see like there's like big issues for me to improve. So any like feedbacks super welcome. Yeah, just something about me. Yeah.
Cool. That's super helpful, and thank you. That's very comprehensive. Just to dig a bit more about your the areas that you know you need to improve. So it's around publicly taking an interviewer through your analysis and through your maths.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think structure is like um it's a little difficult for me to like go above like the very like with the chance like business structure and how to make it like more like tailored to a specific business case. So that's something I'm working on. A little struggle with like how to develop like more customized and more like tailored structure. And also I know like in China like the case interview might be a little different. Like that's from what I've heard. Like they look for like specific kind of like little different styles than what they look for like in North America. Um, and then I think they sometimes do cases in Chinese, so it's a little difficult like to translate from English to Chinese. So it take a little bit like a little more time to like do that translation process. Also, that might be something I need to practice on. And I think like sometimes when I practice like more cases, like I don't feel like necessarily like help me to improve that much. I just feel like I'm somebody needs someone to tell me like what are the points I really need to focus on to really improve my case interview skills. And that'd be really helpful.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the areas that you're stronger on, where have you typically had stronger feedback and more positive feedback?
Yeah, I think like I don't have like the beginning part, like how do you recap the questions, like making clear what the objectives are. I think like I'm okay with that part. I think I'm pretty good at like driving case forward. Like I won't like pause there and like don't know what to do. Like always like proactive in like driving cases. I think also like if I have like a structure down, like I able to like trying to make sure like I follow through the structure, even in case I'm stuck, I will go back and like so I think like keeping like a calm posture is maybe one of my strengths. Don't have a lot of issues with like the the basic quantitative part. I haven't really tried like really a case that really has like really difficult like quantitative part yet. So I don't know if how I would perform in that part. I think yeah, those are probably like some of my strengths, but I can't really tell like whether or not it's like really strong points or not.
Got it. No, that's helpful. Cool. Great. That's really, like I said, really helpful summary. So thank you. So why don't I give you a quick background to me then? So I, as you picked up, am based in London in the UK. I actually studied law at university here before deciding pretty quickly that I didn't want to become a lawyer, and was more interested in the core business side of things. So I did a couple of internships, one with PwC in their strategy department. This was prior to Strategy and then acquiring Booz and rebranding Strategy and then one with Oliver Wyman. And then I joined BCG here in London when I graduated. On my gap year in between finishing university and starting at BCG, I spent half of the year traveling and then half of the year doing full-time case coaching, and coached a number of people into the BCG intake following my one. And then when I joined BCG, the way that it works is consultants will spend around 10% of their time doing non-work activities to benefit the firm, and that could be training and development or organizing social activities. I got involved in recruiting, and then after 1 year of doing that, I took over the London recruiting team from the lady who used to run it when she moved to the Geneva office. So for the remaining 2.5 years I was at BCG, I ran the London recruiting team, and that basically encompassed everything from attraction and sourcing of candidates through to interview or resume screening, through to interviewing, through to offers, and then offer acceptance. So the kind of full life cycle. Since leaving BCG now 3 years or so ago, a couple of years, 2 and a bit years ago, I have started a startup which is in the recruitment space, and then have continued doing freelance case coaching on the side. And so now over the past kind of 6-7 years, have done in excess of about 600 or 700 case interviews. And this season alone, I'm on, I think, 205. This is probably,
Wow.
tell you the number, 218. This is the number. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a fair amount of experience in helping students get the offers that they want.
I see. That's awesome. Yeah. So you have like a lot of success examples and
Yeah. A lot this season. BCG, Bain, McKinsey, Siemens Management Consulting, Accenture, Oliver Wyman, and these are all over the world, in Australia, London, the US, New York, Boston, LA. So a lot of success.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was able to find a connection in McKinsey, like China. But I think he kind of mentioned my profile. So I just graduated, so I won't be able to go through the student channel, like the student recruitment pool. And he said like my profile is not competitive enough to in the experience hires. Like I'm in kind of like dilemma right now. Like, so should I work for a few more like years and apply, or like do I just apply through experience hire? So I wasn't really sure.
Well, I mean, there's no harm in applying through experience hire because at worst they will only stop you reapplying for a year.
Oh,
And if you get rejected, and the reason's because you don't have enough work experience, you'll need at least a year to change that anyway. So
oh,
there's no harm, right? Like,
yeah,
all that will happen, the worst that will happen is you won't be able to apply again for a year. But there wouldn't be any point in you applying again within a year anyway, because the reason you won't be able to change your resume enough within a year based
right.
based on where it's weak. So you might as well. In my opinion, there's nothing to lose.
Okay, yeah, just go ahead and apply. Don't think too much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look, I mean, if he's told you that your resume is probably too weak, then you've got to be realistic with your expectations.
uh-huh.
But there's no harm unless the only caveat to that I would say is if you had something that would radically change your CV within a year.
Yeah,
Within 8 months, let's say there was something in 8 months that's going to happen that would radically change your resume, prove it to the extent that you think you could get an offer or an interview, then obviously don't apply now and wait. But I'm imagining that there's probably nothing that would change your resume enough within the next 12 months.
correct. Yeah.
So you might as well be realistic, but why not? No harm. It's good practice at least anyway to get your resume and CV,
Right.
cover letter done.
Yeah. Thanks.
And
Definitely.
if someone can recommend you as well, then that will really help.
Okay. So that will, like, if I actually get a referral in the office I want to apply to, like, that will help.
Yeah, same as BCG that you're getting in Shanghai there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. All right. So I think the best thing to do now is just jump into a case.
Okay.
So if you're ready, we'll crack on.
Sure. But I'm ready.
All right. So your client is an institution or an organization called the National Park Service, and what they do is they manage all of the national parks in the US, so the likes of Yosemite and Yellowstone, and so on. And what they have seen is that they have quite high staff turnover compared to other similar organizations within the US and also other park organizations around the world. Obviously, this is bad for them, and they've engaged your consulting firm on a kind of pro bono social impact project to help them reduce their staff turnover.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for sharing information. So I would just want to recap to make sure I capture all the key information. So our client is the U.S. National Park Service, and they manage all the national park in the U.S. And they have seen the major issues in their staff turnover rate. So they are hiring us to figure out what are some ways we can reduce the staff turnover. So just want to make sure that I want to learn more about are there success metrics you have in mind? For example, how much staff turnover rate a client want to reduce, and in what time span, and do you have any other specific objectives?
So they'd like to do it as soon as possible, obviously, and there's no kind of specific metrics that they have in mind. But, as we go through the case and do some analysis, maybe we can come up with some benchmarks that we'd like to, or targets that we'd like to hit.
Okay, yeah. And do you have more information on do they have categorizations of their staffs that you can share?
And when you say categorizations, what do you mean?
Also, what kinds of do they kind of have part-time staffs or full-time staff, experienced boss staff, things like that?
Okay, they're all full-time staff, but they have 4 different teams within their staffing pool. They've got law enforcement, education, maintenance, and administrative staff.
Okay. And they experience turnover in all 4 of them, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Can I just take a minute to kind of structure the thoughts?
Sure.
Thank you. Maintain the existing manufacturer. Yeah, so I think like so since you mentioned there are like 4 different teams, like for each teams, so I would like to kind of learn what are some of the external factor that might contribute to the high turnover rate. For example, like maybe there's some other similar park services. They offer more attractive salaries or like employment benefits, or there's like less like more attractive jobs for those employees as a whole, and also like focusing on like more internal factors, to seeing like whether or not like what are the employee satisfaction has been in the recent years. Have there been any like changes in that, and also looking at whether or not like our employment policy are viewed favorable, and what are some of the changes we can make that can uh, help to reduce that turnover rate. And also like after investigating both the external factors and internal factors, we like to look into like some of the other factors that might affect our like employment turnover rate, such as like maybe like our have a constrained budgets that might affect like how we compensate our employees and benefits. Maybe has been like some expansion of park services, and we might understaff that might lead to some of the employees overwork, which cause the employee like satisfaction to decrease. So those are the things I would like to look into. Do you think that's a reasonable plan?
Cool. Okay. So, quick bit of feedback on the structure.
Yeah.
So, what I want you to do is move away from using internal, external, and labels about a particular framework like competition, market, customer, all of this stuff, and move towards using 3 questions.
Okay.
Yes. So, and those questions should be process questions that take you through in order to solve the problem. So if you had to think about 3 steps that you had to go through in order to gather and analyze the information to solve this case in its entirety, what do you think those steps would be?
Okay.
Think about it from a process point of view rather than a content point of view.
Okay, like processing.
Yeah.
Okay. High staff turnover. So I think first I'd like to investigate what are the causes of the high turnover.
Okay, good. So I like that. So good question. So write that down. What else?
So after that, staff turnover. So according to that, like looking at what are the areas we can improve that can address those issues. So looking at our current like operations, see how we can address the problems we find in step 1.
Okay. Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
So that's now basically going to get you to your recommendation. Let's rewind and work backwards through your structure. So the last step is solve the problem for whatever the issue is. The step before that is figure out why we have high staff turnover. What do you need to do before that step?
Why do we have
What will help you answer the why do we have high staff turnover?
why do we have, is that like talking to the people that kind of talked, like do kind of like surveys, like interviews with the people that actually left the park service? And
So yeah, that will help you figure out why. So that will come as, sub bullet points or sub analyses under question 2. But what do we need to know even before question 2?
Before questions 2 will be, are we making sure like this is like our client specific question, or it's like a kind of market wide issue?
Yes, I think that's part of it. There's more broadly, what are you figuring out when you do that?
Looking at our like turnover rate in the past 5 years and see how does that change.
Yeah, or just more simply, what is the turnover rate?
Okay, so what is the turnover rate?
Yeah, so question 1, what is the turnover rate?
Okay.
Question 2, why is the turnover rate so high? Question 3, how do we solve it? Or how do we reduce it?
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
So, and the reason that's better than your structure is for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's complete. So your structure wasn't complete because you just told me you want to look at external factors and then internal factors. So you're really only covering question 2 there. You're not quite covering question 1 and 3, and your structure is meant to lead you through the case step by step. And your internal external factors doesn't do that. It just gives you the middle of the case.
Okay.
Right? So it's not complete. And secondly, it's not designed in a way that will move you through the case, because you're now going to ask a load of questions around internal and external factors, but then like you've got all this information and you don't know what to do with it. Whereas if you phrase it as questions, you're ready to move on to the next bucket when you can answer that question. So question 1, what is the staff turnover? You'll get the staff turnover, compare it to some benchmarks, realize where it's abnormal, and then you'll be able to answer the question, the question should actually be, where is the staff turnover abnormally high, for instance, versus benchmark? And you'll be able to answer that question, and then you'll be like, okay, now I'm ready to move on to question 2 or phase 2, right?
I see.
So it leads you through the case chronologically, which your structure doesn't do.
Oh, okay.
So my first bit of feedback is get into the habit of phrasing your structure as 3 questions with sub-bullet points beneath them, not just labels.
Oh. So like within those, within each step, like you do sub-bullet points?
Yes, correct. Sub-questions to help answer the overall question. So let's now try and think, or for you to try and think about some sub-questions that would go underneath each of these main questions.
Okay. What is staff turnover? What is staff turnover rate? So I would like to know like the staff turnover rate, like for each team, like how does that compare? Like how does that look like? Because you mentioned there are like 4 different teams. So I like to know the specific staff turnover rate for those teams. And also I like to know like how much does it change in the past like 3 years? Does it like increase significantly? That might mean like that team has like the most issues because its turnover rate increased the fastest. Rates each 4 teams changes. Okay, so I think those 2 are my sub-bullet points. So one is like how does the staff turnover rate changes? What is the staff turnover rates for each of the 4 teams? And the second is like how has the staff turnover rate changes in the past 3 years for each of the 4 different teams in the National Park Service?
Okay, cool. So I think those are good bullet points. I think there's one more, which is
Yeah.
how does it compare to benchmarks?
Okay.
Because the real question is, is not just what's the staff turnover, but where is the staff turnover abnormally high versus benchmarks?
Okay.
Maybe across the board, but maybe only in certain teams.
So benchmark. So the third, how should I phrase the third bullet? Like benchmark against the other park services?
Yeah, what are some acceptable, or what are some benchmark turnover rates in similar organizations?
Okay, how does that benchmark?
How does that compare to benchmarks? That's the easy way to say it.
Okay. Here. Okay, so that's my third bullet point.
Yeah. Okay, what about your bullet points under why is this happening?
Why are turnover rates so high? So can I use like external and internal here?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So it's more like external. Okay, so I think so my two big buckets under the why are the turnover rates are so high. So the first one is external and the second one is internal. So under external, like I like to look at whether or not like other similar like park services they offer more attractive employment packages, so that might draw some of our employees to those park services. And then second, maybe there's like some government policy that something we cannot control that might have like a negative impact on our employment turnover rate. And the second one is like more internal. Maybe we have some more rooms to improving our employment benefit package, like also like in salaries. Or maybe there's some issues within like how we manage our staff. There might be some issues on overstaffing or understaffing that might lead to the high turnover rate. So that would need us to further investigate later in the case.
Cool. Okay. Good. And then how to reduce it, you don't really need some bullet points. That will kind of form itself as we go through the case.
Okay.
Cool. All right, let's continue.
Yeah.
Actually, before we do, I want to ask you a question in the case. Why is it bad for a company to have high staff turnover?
I think like it's the high turnover rate. Is it like a brainstorming? Okay, sure. So I think so I'm looking at it more from, so one is like bad like operation and like management side, because you have to like retrain the new employees, or like have to like retraining the employees is very costly in terms of time and money. So that's one reason. And also like it's not necessarily good for the teams, because you have to like kind of so the team, you have to like recruit the new members, and they have to like learn how to work with other people that might reduce like the overall productivity for teams. Um, Also, like I think also from like economical standpoints, it's very costly to firing and like also like rehiring and paying the training and the money to retrain the new employees. Um, so I think those are some of the reasons why high turnover rate is not very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
Okay. So I think I would like to learn more about what is staff turnover rate, preferably breaking down by like the different teams you mentioned earlier.
Okay, yes. So let me send you some data. If you check your chat window, there's a link in there.
Okay, so I see. So it's for the teams shows number of left in 2016 total rangers, 2016 cost per loss rangers. Okay. So can I just ask one clarification question? So number left is already included in the total number of rangers in 2016. It's part of the 2100.
Yes, as in there were 2,100 rangers, and of those 2,100, 98 of them left.
Oh, okay, got it. So could you like me to calculate the total cost for each team?
Sorry, would I like you to, or you're going to?
Oh, yeah. Could you like me to like calculate the total cost for the 4 different teams?
What do you think the analyses you should do are?
So I think first I'd like to know like the turnover rate. So I will calculate it by number of ranger left divided by total number of rangers for team. So that's my first calculation. And I think the second step, I would like to know kind of like the total cost for each team. So apparently that law enforcement has the highest cost per loss rangers among the 4 teams.
Okay, and so why are you doing those 2 analyses?
So first is kind of see which team has the highest turnover rate. So that would kind of like help us like prioritize later on like which team we should probably focus on first. I think second one is kind of see which team has the highest turnover cost. So those might help like us to finalize what are the key areas, like what are the like teams that have most issue.
Yeah.
Number of rangers left and the cost.
Okay, cool. Off you go.
Okay, sure. Do the calculation. So for law enforcement, so for each one, I will use. So for law enforcement, is 98 rangers left divided by total number of rangers of 2100. So that will be. Can I like round it up to 100?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that's about 100 divided by 84. 8,400. It's about 4.7. So I used 98 divided by I rounded up 98 to 100 divided by 2100. So it's 4.7%, and education is 175. 5. 44.9%. Maintenance is 5 by 2.4%. It's 2.7%. 2.4 million. Okay. Hello. Sorry, it takes a little longer. So the number I get is this is should I read it out loud or?
Yeah.
For law enforcement, so the turnover rate is around 4.7%. And it costs a total of $3.45 million for the specific year. And for education, the turnover rate is slightly higher at 4.9%. It cost them about $1.08 million. And for the maintenance, the turnover rate is only about like half of what the law enforcement and education turnover rate at 2.4%. And also the turnover cost is much lower at $752,000, and for administrative, little slightly higher than the maintenance. It is at 2.7%, and the total cost is $878,000 for this specific teams. So I do see like we have the highest turnover rate at educations and closely followed by law enforcement. And law enforcement definitely has a much higher turnover cost than the other three teams. So I would like to kind of like focus on the teams that might impose the biggest issues. So probably law enforcement and education teams first.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
So what would you like to do next?
So I think after looking at so I'd like to know if you have any data, like how does this turnover rate compare to other park services or other organizations that offer hire similar staff or offer similar service that we do?
Yeah, the benchmark should be around 2.5%.
Oh, okay, 2 versus 2.4%. Okay, so based on the analysis we just did and also the benchmark, so I would suggest that we move forward to investigate in what are the causes for such a high turnover rate in law enforcement teams and education teams.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you have any like relevant data on we collected what are the causes for such a high turnover rate?
We don't yet, but how would you go about collecting some information or data?
Okay. So I think what I would like, so it's probably more, it's relatively easy for us to probably collect some internal data. So I would like to, for example, conduct some employment surveys. So especially like maybe ask kind of like anonymous surveys and ask those people that decide to leave the park service and see what are the reasons they are leaving us.
Yeah.
So that's one way. And then second, like kind of ask, kind of like looking into how our employee salaries and employment benefit packages like compared to other similar organizations. Is there like a huge discrepancies? And that might be one reason that caused this such a high turnover rate we are seeing right now. And also looking at overall operations, whether there's some issues in overstaffing and understaffing that might lead to employee like dissatisfactions. So that's something we should collect data on. And external data is a little bit more difficult to collect data. Maybe kind of like looking at other parks and seeing have there been any how our like overall employment policy compared to that might be something we can.
Okay, so let's say we do the exit surveys, and let's say we're just focusing on law enforcement for the moment, to keep it simple. And we do some exit surveys, and we find out that they feel as though they're being underpaid.
Okay.
How would you then go about validating that, those quotes or those concerns that you hear?
Okay, so we just finished. We had a survey, and that shows people the top reason people left is due to the underpay.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So in order to validate that, I think I like to go into like law enforcement and making sure I have like the clear statistics on how much each position, like each role within the law enforcement, how they're currently being paid, and also know like as many details about like what is their employment benefit packages, and use that and like benchmark against other park service like or like other law enforcement teams, like different park services, and see whether or not like our pay are significantly lower than those.
So where would you like to start?
Where I like to start? So I would like to start by asking like, do you have any like similar organizations, how they're currently paying their law enforcement teams?
Yes, so the private sector typically pays 50% more than we are paying our staff.
Okay. Sector. So you say mentioned 50%.
They pay 50% more, the private sector.
Oh, okay. 50% more.
Yeah.
So we're paying 50% less.
We're paying a third less.
A third less. Okay.
They're paying 50% more, and we're paying a third less because they're different bases on the fraction.
Okay.
You see what I mean? It's the same, but as a percentage.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. So we are paying a third. We're paying a third of what the.
We're paying 2/3 of what. So if we're paying, let's say we're paying 100, they're paying 50% more, private sector generally, so they're paying 150. But that means we're paying a third less because we're paying 100, right?
Okay. So I think that's one point that validates that we're definitely underpaying our law enforcement staffs.
Okay. So what do we do about it?
So what I should do about like how we can address this underpaying issues?
Yes.
So I think probably the most straightforward way is to raise our salaries. But I'm not sure it's feasible because it really depends on like a number of factors. So whether or not we have like constrained budget, like also, so I think budget's like definitely one issue. I'm not sure like are we currently able to?
No, so we don't have additional funding to raise salaries.
Additional funding. Okay, so that's not options. No salaries. So given like the funding is fixed, so and we can raise the salary per staff. So I'm thinking, is it possible to hire fewer people and have like a more effective operations, but like paying each person like a bit more than paying?
Okay, that's a good idea. How would we go about it? So I'm not suggesting we explore that now, but why don't you give me a summary and then tell me the next steps that you would look into in order to explore that?
Yes, so I think the next step will be so looking into our current park operation and see whether or not there's some inefficiency in how we staff people. For example, like we might realize we don't really need 4 people in a team. We can actually manage all the tasks, like with just 3 fully functional employees. So really looking into whether there's inefficiency in the operations. So that will help us to maybe to cut down the number of employees we need for law enforcement. So after that, we are able to have a fewer number of employees and then able to offer them a more attractive salary. So that will in turn increase the turnover rate in the long run.
Cool. So that's your conclusion.
Okay.
All right. Awesome. Let's pause there. What did you think?
Oh, are we done?
Yes. And that's why I was saying that. Is that your conclusion?
Oh yeah. Okay. I think it is. Okay. It's okay. Yeah, I think I did okay.
Which bits did you find easy and which bits did you find hard?
I think the calculation is not too hard. It might take a little longer than I expect. I feel like the silence is a little long. So yeah, I think a little struggle with the structure as you mentioned, like I was using a more like snapshot of the structure, not like taking a comprehensive like process structure. I think like it's good. Like I'm able to like go like drive the case by using the structure. So I'm like not losing track along the way.
Yeah.
For my feedbacks.
Cool. Okay, so let me give you my feedback. So I think overall, that was yeah, decent job. I think you will, based on this, I think you can, or you have the kind of core potential to get an offer. I think there will still be a fair amount of work you need to do in order to get that offer. You're definitely not there yet, and still not, I still wouldn't even say you're close, but I think you have the potential to get there from the raw, I guess, the raw fundamentals that I saw here. So I think the summary is good core potential, but still a lot of work to do.
Okay.
That's the summary. To break that down a bit, I think in terms of the things that you did well, I think you had lots of the kind of the basics down. You drove the case well. That's something you'd identified before. You could do the maths, albeit it took a bit of time. You had a sense of the right kinds of things to be asking about. You picked up the structure, the new way of doing a structure pretty quickly. So there's a lot of good kind of basics in place. Now it's really a case of tightening and really sharpening all of those things, so you ace the case rather than kind of slowly get through it bit by bit. And there are still lots of nuances and depth to this case which you can really get, but we didn't really get into. So those are the constructive, the good things. In terms of a couple of things around constructive feedback. Firstly, around structure. So we went through how to do structure. Try and now embed that way of doing structure into your new cases that you do with everyone.
Okay.
Always try and do 3 questions with sub-bullet points or sub-questions beneath them.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find it a lot more helpful in moving through the case if you do that.
Okay.
So that's on structure. Then on maths, I actually have a few bits of feedback on your maths, funnily enough. So you could do the operations pretty much fine. There were a couple of the operations that were slightly off in terms of number, but they were ballpark fine, so that's not a problem. A few new kind of sub things which I want to mention though. So the first thing is when you get some data or analysis to do, think about the analysis you want to do first and tell the interviewer. You kind of jumped in and you were like, oh, do you want me to work out the total cost for each team of losing these employees? And I was kind of like, I don't know, I'm the client, you tell me. So have a think about it and then suggest and say, hey, these are the 2 analyses that I'd like to do. I had to ask and prompt you to do that. But you could say, I would like to look at the total cost of the team and then look at the turnover rates and compare that to benchmarks. Those are 2 analyses I like to do. Do you agree?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing on maths is you should eyeball the numbers and then do, and you won't need to do everything. This will speed it up for you. So if you look at the table, if you have the table there, you can see that, let's say we're doing total cost per ranger. You can see that the total number of rangers who left in, let's say, if we look at maintenance administrative, they have the same cost per lost ranger, but administrative have more rangers that left. So you don't even really need to look at maintenance because you know that in terms of total cost, because or at least deprioritize it because the total cost is going to be lower than administrative. On the other hand, you can see that the cost per lost ranger for law enforcement is 10 times as big, more than 10 times as big in law enforcement than maintenance administrative, whereas the total number of rangers lost is basically 4 times as small. So you've got a factor of 10x and then an increasing factor of 10x and a decreasing factor of 4x. so that you know law enforcement is going to be a lot greater than maintenance, administrative, and education. You can just eyeball it and see that, right? You don't need to necessarily do every single calculation in full detail. Think about what you're trying to figure out here, which is how do I prioritize? The outcome of this analysis is to figure out which of the teams should I prioritize my investigations on. It doesn't really matter whether we're losing 5 million in one and 6.5 million in the other. All that matters is we're losing 5 million in one and 20 million in the other, right? Like it's the difference between them that we want to know, not necessarily the exact number.
Yeah.
So think about math shortcuts. That's my second piece. And then the third bit is around doing public maths. And this is a technique which we can kind of discuss a bit and practice a bit. But at the moment, when you do maths, you basically put your head down, do it, and then read me the number at the end. What you need to get into the habit of doing is explaining to the interviewer in qualitative terms, here is the analysis or the operation I'm going to do, and then step by step walk them through it. So for instance, in this, you could be saying, let me just pull up the number again, where is it? Okay, so now I want to work out what the total cost, I can see that the total cost in the law enforcement is going to be the highest. I want to quickly figure out roughly what kind of cost that is. So we know we lost 2,100 rangers we lost, sorry, I did this in total rangers, isn't it? We know we lost 98 rangers in 2016 and each cost around 35,000. So I'm going to do 35,000 multiplied by 100. That is 3.5 million. Okay, great. And so you see how I've talked you through it?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just a little, like, when I was doing it, because I feel like I'm doing the calculation for each team and it's repetitive. So in that case, like, how should I present my math, like, qualitative?
Well, first you're going to cut down the team so you don't do all of them. And then secondly, yes, walk me through all of the other calculations.
Okay. So like just do one by one.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So those are my bits of feedback. Let me pause there quickly. How does that all sound? Does that resonate with you? Is that helpful?
Yeah. I think those are the areas like I'm trying to improve on too.
Cool. In terms of action plan then, so what I would suggest you do now is you continue practicing with case partners. I would estimate you are probably around 40 live good cases away from being off already.
Okay.
The caveat to that is that I haven't seen your progress between this case and the next one we do. So all I've got is one data point, and it's very hard to draw a line with one data point, right? You need at least two. And the more data points you have, the smoother or the more accurate the line is. So it's hard for me to kind of fully say. Just based on what I've seen with other students, I would say you're 40 to 50 cases away.
Okay.
Like I said, you're on the way, but you're not, there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Alongside that, we will obviously continue our sessions. The 40 to 50 cases need to be with good case partners, and they need to be good live cases. So you know how you do some cases and you're kind of like, oh, actually, that person wasn't that helpful. They didn't really give me good feedback. They didn't really challenge me. I want you to do 40 to 50 good cases. If they're good cases, you can probably do 40 and you'll be at offer level in conjunction with these sessions we're doing. But think about where you are now then and when you would like to be interviewing. And maybe, so your BCG interview, do you know when that will be?
I think October. That's what the partner told me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So October. So let's imagine it's the beginning of October, let's say, for whatever reason, just to be conservative. So we've got 1, 2, 6 weeks. So we've got, call it 40 days. So what I would start doing now is doing one case a day with a case partner. And then as you get closer to the time, you can ramp up from there.
Okay.
Needed.
Yeah. Okay.
And that gives you a bit of time to take the odd day off as well, because you won't want to do one case a day every single day. How does that sound? Does that sound doable to you?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Yes.
And if you want to do more than that, and you can do more than that, brilliant. I would say as a baseline though, you should be doing one a day.
Okay, got it. And I also like watch Davis the videos. I think that's kind of helpful.
Yeah, watch them as well. Use that as a complement to your practice, though, not as a substitution.
Right. Okay. The actual casing. Yeah.
Exactly. The most important thing is doing the cases. The best analogy is that you are now training to become a professional footballer, and you can watch as many football games on the TV as you want.
Yeah.
But unless you actually go out and play football, you're never going to become a professional footballer.
I see.
But you can train professional football and watch it on TV as well, and that's great. And it helps. It helps because you can watch the pros play. But that alone is not going to help you. It's not going to make you become a professional footballer. You need to go out and start playing.
I see. And like, I'm just curious, like, how many did you do when you get the offer?
I did about 100. Yeah.
Oh.
But I didn't have any guidance from anyone. So I completely did it self-taught using internet resources. So I did it a bit slower than I should have done, or I could have done. I didn't really have anyone guiding me and telling me. I think if I had help, I could have done it in maybe half of that. But the extra 50 hours or 50 cases I did, well, 100 hours because an hour each way, was basically me figuring out stuff myself that it would have been a lot quicker for someone just to say, don't do this, do this.
Yeah, thanks for guidance.
Yeah, no worries.
Oh, and also I think one more question, like for the fit question part, like how do I prepare for that? Because I feel like that's also very important.
Yes, it is. Well, for BCG, the case is more important, but fit, you're right, is still important. The best thing to do is, well, we can do a session on fit when we get nearer the time. Let's focus on the case first, and then the fit stuff it's usually a lot quicker. I would typically suggest you spend 90 to 95% of your time on case prep and 5 to 10% of it on fit.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
So yeah, we'll cover that bridge, but focus on cases first.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, really good job. What I'll do is I'll send you a video or the link to the recording of this video with a summary of the feedback, and then I look forward to our next session.
Okay. So how many cases should I do before we do our next session?
So I haven't looked at my calendar. Have you scheduled the next one yet?
Oh, I have not.
Okay. So I would suggest scheduling it in about 10 days.
Okay.
7 to 10 days is a good amount of time. And then doing between 7 and 10 cases, or 5 to 10 cases, basically. Ideally, kind of 7 to 10. 7 to 10 cases. So you can start working on some of the feedback I've given you. And, then over the 5 sessions, that will basically quite nicely ramp you up to the 50 cases.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Nice work. Well, have a great weekend and look forward to catching up next time, Vivian.
Thank you, Dan.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.